Okay, numbers are building up. Beautiful. So
it's the White Shirt Tech Tuesday.
white shirt. Who needs a pinstripe prison when you can bring the white shirt brigade? And we pulled out the big guns. We've got with us, of course, Phil Tarrant, who many of you know, in fact, was in a recent report, one of the most influential people in real estate in Australia. He's also one of the owners and founders of REB from the company Momentum Media that analyse the productivity of real estate agents across Australia and produce various reports, including Dealmakers, REB Top 100, which is what most people are aware of. Plus, you also receive, if you don't, every day an email, and get on that email list to find out what's happening all real estate. And also Pete Matthews, who has just finished his 2-year stint as president of the Real Estate Institute, and also one of the founders of Realtair. And we're back together for our first Tech Tuesday for 2024, where we bring you everything to do with technology. And we are a big believer in tech, not substituting, but complementing a real estate agent. And today we're going to do a deep dive of the Macquarie Bank analysis of the real estate industry, which they do. They seem to do it, Peter, every 2 years off the top of my head, isn't it? It's not a report that comes out every year.
No, it's not. It's a pretty comprehensive report across a lot of the Macquarie Bank customers, and some big businesses in there, Tom. So there was some pretty interesting data that came out of that.
Yeah. So Pete, you did a summary of the report. Phil, I sent you the main elements of the report that we're going to discuss. We're all going to chime in. It's now 4 o'clock. We're going to aim to go in at 4:30. Phil Tarrant raised a very good point before we went on air. He says, why are we doing this? And I said, educate the agents. And then we said, step after that is, hey, if you see that some of these issues that come up in this interview are impacting you and you want to solve it, you might find that Realtair solves some of those issues. Maybe not all of them, but many of the most important. How did you feel, Pete? How did you feel about when you read the report? And I know, you spend your life is spent helping real estate agents understand tech better, list and sell more real estate, make more money, have a good life, but you also auction a lot of real estate. In fact, where you are right now, you're at one of our big real estate operators, Constantinopoulos from the McGrath Group in that Parramatta area. And you told me he's got on February the 3rd. That's a quick start to the year. How many auctions has he got?
They've got 130 on-site auctions on the February the 3rd, that single day, which I think's got I don't know if there's,
130 auctions.
Yeah.
Real estate office on February the 3rd. Just to give you an idea, there used to be real estate agents in Australia that wouldn't actually do an open home until after Australia Day. That's what the world's changed. I actually think what happened this year, if Christmas hadn't come along, agents would keep signing contracts, because what I've learned, and I reckon Realtair, I think COVID's been part of it, people now actually feel like it's not this 4 weeks that we have off. We're on the phone, we're doing deals. And to me, I can't get over how many people started work basically on the 3rd of January again this year.
Yeah, it was... What was interesting, just on Con and his team, I mean, they've done a stellar job to plan that event and to, I guess, get owners. They had quite a few owners, Tom, that were signed up well before the year had ended, that were scheduled to go to auction on the February 3rd. But yeah, they haven't let any public holidays or any breaks impact what they're doing. They're seeing some really strong numbers too, like the average amount of people coming through opens in their first weeks were 10, but there was some with lesser numbers and some with a lot more, but that's pretty good across that big broad number. But just anecdotally, because you just reminded me of something, is that I think we are partly responsible giving agents tools that they can use remotely, but also too, I think what was really interesting is this year is I looked at all of the prospecting numbers to see if agents were prospecting early in the year. And in the first 10 days of January, there was more prospecting done in the first 10 days of January than there was in the entire month of January last year. So I think agents have definitely understood that the end of year might have presented a few challenges, and one of those was a bit of a lack of stock, and that everyone's been out actively prospecting, trying to find and ensure that this year is not going to be as stock light as it was last year. So there's been plenty of activity, not just in the listing side of it, but definitely in the prospecting side of it too.
Look, 62% of people in this study by Macquarie Bank, the largest study of real estate businesses in Australia in recent times, 62% of their expenses are occupied by staff salaries and commissions. And Phil, also, I'd love you to weigh in on this because you run a, how many staff you got in your business, Phil?
Gets a lot more complicated, a couple of hundred.
Okay, a couple of hundred, right? So 62% of expenses are occupied by staff salaries. It went on to say staff attraction and retention consume significant focus for principals. Rising staffing and wage costs, 69%. Finding and recruiting new staff, 60%. Property management retention, 53%. It appears that it's all to do with people problems, people staffing. Pete, what are your views?
Yeah, so look, I saw that as probably one of the pretty big highlights out of that report, and it's probably no surprise, I think, to most principals listening to this, that there's been a pretty big increase in the expectation of staff. I guess when you look at it, you've got not just on the property management side, there's definitely been that. I mean, property managers, I don't think you could ever pay them enough. It's such an incredible and important job that they do. But more particularly on the sales side, where you've seen an increase in an expectation from the salesperson to get more share of that commission wallet. So that was an increase on the last time the report was done, which I think you're right, was about 2 years ago. And anecdotally, it's felt like that has been the case, because there has been a lot of new models that have come in that are maybe a little bit less touch, but certainly pay a lot more. And then that's translated into the traditional model, and probably the area that's put the most pressure on. If you're going to pay your salespeople more, your fixed costs aren't moving too much. So really what you're doing is you're just eating into your profit margin. So finding that 63% of, or principals were worried about that part of their business wasn't a great surprise to me at all.
Yeah, Phil, your views?
Well, thanks, Tom, for forcing me to read this report, because I probably wouldn't have done it otherwise. And it's been a great enabler for me. So I do have, by way of disclosure, I thank you for that nice introduction about me, Tom. And I'm happy to report two things. Number one, I am wearing socks. And the second point be, I have a big focus on productivity inside of our business. And I see inside of our integrated marketing media company exactly the same parallels what we're seeing inside of real estate agencies based on this report. My team are already sick of me talking about it, and we're only really a week or so into this calendar year, and productivity is going to be the key mantra that every single person inside of real estate will be talking about this year and beyond. If you haven't yet read this report, you haven't had access to it, no doubt, Tom, it's available in the notes or somewhere or other. Do yourself a favour and go and read it. You would have seen, Tom, just very quickly before Christmas, that Momentum increased its stake in Managed, the property management platform that removes trust accounts from real estate. So I have a bias towards the property management side of things as part of it, but I see in this, on the agency side of things, and where Realtair will be a great enabler, is that you really got to empower people to do the people jobs, and you've got to be leveraging technology to do the heavy lifting. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing that in real estate, you're going to be chasing your tail. What was really important to me as part of this report is a headline: number one, productivity; number two, efficiencies; but number three, look where the clues are. Success leaves clues, Tom, as you know. The outliers, where they're performing, they've got more properties under management per property manager, and they have more sales per agent. And it's pretty simple, the equations, running a real estate office or agency. Go out there and find those dynamics that work and chase them, and look towards technology to drive. That would be my summary, is all part of this. There are agencies out there who are in the trend. There's a lot of stresses on revenue at the moment. Agency commissions are down. I was quite alarmed by those drops, Tom. I think 1.65 is the base number now for real estate commissions, and property management commissions are down as well. So the key point for this is that you need to understand what your value proposition is, and it's not price, and it's not what you charge in commissions. It's everything else, and that's the productivity of the real estate agents and those agents that leverage technology the best. That's my quick notes on it.
Yeah, well, I did a session this morning with a bunch of people. The guy wants to go from 700 to 1.2, and he was saying, oh, I need to go put someone on. And then we sat down. Pete, you'll be fascinating. I said, before you go off and pay someone 70, 80 grand, can I ask you, what do you want this person to be doing? Have you got a job description? And he goes, no, I haven't. I said, well, we've got 5 minutes left on this coaching call. Let's do it together. So I had my remarkable there, and I shared my screen. I was drawing it up. At the end of it, this is what came up. He wanted someone to send out pre-listing kits. He wanted someone to do, nurture his database, price updates. He wanted someone to be doing the admin, signing contracts. I said, listen, before you go any further there, I've got to tell you, there are tech things that you can do now that you don't have to outlay 80 grand. I go, you can just go off. And I said, by the way, I said, I'm doing something with Realtair the Savo. I said, have you thought about getting Realtair? Get ready for this, Pete. He goes, no, we've got it. And I said, because there must be a few people like that. Oh, no.
Yeah.
We've got it. He goes, we're paying for the tech stack. And I said, so what you want to go off do is spend another $80,000, right? When you just told me, I saw an agent here in Byron Bay doing deals on Christmas Eve on the 24th. Mate, he was doing it all off his mobile phone, getting the person to sign the contract. Happy days. And he was heading to the beach hotel to get pissed afterwards. He goes, this is too good to be true. He goes, I just exchanged it. And he goes, I haven't even been in Melbourne. He's from Melbourne. I haven't been in Melbourne for 3-4 days, he says, and I'm still doing deals.
Yeah, I mean, look, nothing gave me pleasure, mate, more than seeing the fact that we see the numbers nationally, and you see like you talk about, productivity. Phil was just talking about that. Here's an agent who's in the board shorts, still doing deals, not running around trying to get contracts exchanged or sending off agency agreements or dealing with staff around all that stuff. They're just doing it all directly from their phone, which is great. I would say though, like to that agent, the amount of times that I think we just automatically default to what we know, so that when you feel like you're a bit overwhelmed and you need help, you go, oh, what I'll do, I'll just get a person to throw at that problem without sort of understanding either what tech is available, and even before you start looking at everything outside, look at what you've got. I mean, we've actually spent the last probably 6 months, and we're definitely focusing this month, is that we're getting rid of the word demo from our vocabulary and talking now about workshops. Like it's pointless having technology and even paying for Realtair if you're not getting value out of it. So how do you drive value? Well, you've got to be having agents perform activities. And Phil talked about productivity. Well, what productivity do you want? Well, if somebody wants to write $1 million in comm, then they have to sell a certain amount of properties. And if they're going to sell a certain amount of properties, they need a certain amount of listings. And if they're going to get listings, they need to do appraisals. If they're going to get appraisals, they need to do prospecting. It's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. And the difference is, I think in most cases, is that one, there is no plan. Two, if there is a plan, the plan does not go as deep as saying, what prospecting do I need to do to drive the appraisal activity that I need to get the listings, which will generate the sales, which will give me the sales comp. And it's that kind of, I think, discipline that, we've lacked before. And so what we automatically default to is, I need to get a resource that can help me with all these things. If people just start looking at the very basics of what they got now and start with what we used to do back when we were listing and selling, Tom, is that you say, how can I create a system where I can talk to more people and give them information that's meaningful? Well, you've got tech that can do that for you now, that does provide that and does create a measurement and does give a principled transparency to hold that salesperson to account. And it's just, we did a business plan for an agent the other day who wanted to write $500,000 based on $1 million sale price with a 1.9% commission average, which was theirs. So marginally higher than the state average. They had to do 7 price updates a day, 48 days a week, 3 days a week. So 48 weeks a year, 3 days a week, 7 price updates, 3 minutes ago, it's 21 minutes worth of prospecting. So it's not a big ask. And then they said, oh, what if I want to do 1 million? We'll do 14. And that's because
Is it that mechanical, Peter? I'm a Luddite. I've never sold real estate on behalf of anyone in my life. Is it that mechanical? Because what you're talking about here is productivity and efficiencies and leveraging technology to do it. Can you structure it that way and it's predictable, the outcome that you'll get?
Yeah. Well, look, the thing, I guess the caveat to all of this, and you look at the queries in this Macquarie Bank report, where principals are concerned about, retention of staff and paying out and all the rest of it. You look at it and you say, okay, well then how does somebody create a plan? Most people feel in real estate don't have a plan. They have a plan of what they want to achieve. They just don't have a plan of how they're going to achieve that. So I'm certainly not saying that tech is going to replace any relationship at all. But what it does, and to go back to Tom's early point when we first came on board, it's an enabler. So if I've got 1,000 people or 2,000 people on a database, I can communicate with them and give them information that's relevant to them. We know 2.5 years of price update data, 1 in 10 of those generates a market appraisal. So if you send the price update and you either make a call before to let them know it's coming, or you send the price update and you make a call after to talk them through that report, and then you then schedule that, you might decide to schedule it every 3 months or 6 months or whatever, you will end up with 1 in 10. That's just the statistical average nationally that will turn into an appraisal. Now, whether that appraisal converts to a listing, that's where you've got an appraisal to list conversion. Now, if you look at the industry average, that's around about sort of 30%. If you are doing a lot more prospecting, that might drop a little bit. It might come down to that 20-25. And if you've got a listing, you know that your conversion for an auction versus a private treaty might be, a 10% variable from say 90 to 80, 90% for auction, 80% for private treaty within the agency period. And you know what commission is, and you know what the sale price is, and you can work out what the gross com is. So it is. It doesn't mean that your plan is going to follow exactly that formula, but that plan and putting that process behind that plan certainly gives you a much greater chance of success than what's currently, I guess, probably the norm. And that is hope.
I think in that, listen, not every flight is going to get to their destination at exactly the time that is actually up on the screen, right? But it is going to get there. And I think it drifts in that direction. And I think that's what a plan does. And I'm looking at this report here. This is another thing that I've taken out of it. 47% of principals are over 50 years of age, right? 47% of principals. It goes on to say that 40% of principals have plans to sell. There's an exodus happening, isn't there? There's a changing of the guard. It appears to be on the horizon.
Yeah, but I mean, you then have to look into, well, why is it that our principals are getting older? Why isn't it that, like it has been historically, that there's been a kind of refreshing of that? You've had 20-year-old principals that have bought businesses and that have grown them and all the rest. That's just not happening anymore. And the thing that I'd probably look to with that is that you, as an agent, instead of it being the natural progression to be a principal, I remember when I first got my first share of wallet fill, just so that you know, I was on a 35% commission payment, which, I think I replaced Tom, by the way. He went and started his own business. I think he might have been a little bit more common than I was then, but 35%. And my first commission only job was on.
I was being ripped off by the boss. You've just made it public. I was on 30%. So work this out. I'm the loyal guy that was with him for about 2-3 years. I'm on 30%. He gets the new guy at 35%. But Phil, do you realise in today's era, they would call that slave labour in real estate? No one gets paid that 30 to 35%. Or
the point I would make, Tom, is that Peter's a much better negotiator than you, and probably a better real estate agent, because you weren't looking after your own rice bowl. But the dynamics and the economics of real estate have changed. You see those shares now to the agent is increased rapidly. So revenues fluctuate, but profitability is down. It's harder to make money. You've got to do more work to make the money that you used to because commission rates are down. There's a lot of challenges, and to the point, around 47% of agency principals agents are over 50 years of age, goes to a sense around creating value inside of your real estate business, and that's what this whole report is about. Is that how do you create value inside of your real estate business? Now, if 40% of them, I can't remember exactly the number, are looking to sell within 2 to 5 years, if I was one of them, if I had the thing that I looked at every single morning, what do I want to achieve today? To be how to create value inside of my real estate agency, my real estate business, and how you do that is the key, and how you do that is the art. What I have noticed is the makeup, according to this report, gents, of income is moving rapidly towards property management. And the numbers there, Tom, back in 2007, 29% of all agency revenue was generated through property management. Today, it's nearly 50%. Nearly half of the revenue generated by real estate agencies is through property management. Why do you think that? Well, if everyone's looking to sell at some point, where do you create value? What's the sellable asset you have inside of your real estate business? A lot of it is tied up with your rent roll. Now, with your rent roll, where there are a lot of the challenges in running it, because it's a tough job. Peter, you made that point. It's a tough job. Even the best senior property managers, I was shocked by the numbers, make about $85,000 a year. I don't think that's enough, by the way, for the work that they do. There's pressures there around the economics of it. However, if you're in the business of real estate, and how do you create value? You don't do it by dropping your commissions. You don't do it by lowering your property management commissions. You create value elsewhere, Tom. Now, that's why you've got such a big coaching business. Everyone wants to understand how do they create value, other than using Realtair as a great system as to augment the power of the professional.
Yeah.
I'd add to that too. You look at it, Phil. It's on the property management side, the fact that the retention of property managers, there's more than half of the principals surveyed are worried about their property managers. And I'd say part of it is that they're concerned about exactly that, about the remunerative side, because it is a really, really tough job. We saw during COVID, really what the true value of property managers were. And I think now that's starting to be translated into property managers understandably recognizing their value. And also for businesses, as you said before, because they're getting so much more of their revenue coming from the property management side, they're realizing the true value of that asset. And equally too, on the tech side, like you've got to have the right efficiencies in place and utilizing technology appropriately in the property management space just as much as you do in the sales space. Like it is exactly the same. Using your platform or others, those that are sort of using bits and pieces of things. Like I think it's just wholly embracing the software of choice. Otherwise, you can end up subscribing to too many things without actually committing to really anything. And that's, I think,
and that came out clear in the report as well, is the fatigue of trying to run too many different technology systems simultaneously, which don't interconnect with each other. And therein lies the future for real estate technology is having interconnected platforms that serve different parts of your business. The point is, Tom, how do you build an effective real estate business today? Is it you generate a very good sales business and you pivot that into creating value through a large rent roll business, which gives you opportunities for succession and or sale? That, according to a report, that sounds like the way you got to do it.
Yeah. Peter, I'd like to get your view on it. And while you're doing that, I'm looking at this. Melbourne and Sydney, Victoria and New South Wales had a lower property management commission, 5.9%. And then you go to, it's fascinating, Queensland, 7.5%, jumps up there. Go to Western Australia, 8.5%,
yeah.
nearly double.
Yeah. Incredible, isn't it? And it'd be really interesting to understand what the multiples of like the multiple rate is for property management over there, considering that. Like you're getting a lot more per deal over there. So I wonder if that's sort of driving the value as well, because we still haven't seen any massive lifts in property management multiple values. I don't think, and I really think that those that have got a really strong technology base, those rent rolls are certainly worth more in that multiple. But yeah, I thought that was quite incredible, really. I mean, you look at the sales commissions in New South Wales, 1.76% average, property management 5.5. Victoria, that really surprised me that they were a lot less than New South Wales, 1.59%, versus the New South Wales number, which was 1.76. And also property management still down, 5.59. I know that it's a little bit better than New South Wales, but that still was a surprising number from my side.
Go on,
Do you
Phil.
think, Peter, sorry, Tom, do you think, Peter, that this is as low as sales commissions can go? Like, and what needs to be done to get sales commissions back up to where they were 3-4 years ago? Is this the new norm?
Oh, do you know? It's funny. It's a really, really good question, and I hate to think about the whether this is right or not. But if you look at the average sale price of a property, say if you take New South Wales, if you've got a $1 million sale, which is certainly that's less than the median value, it's a $17,600 commission. So for a seller to go and pay $17,600, that's quite a bit of money when you consider that you've also got marketing that is then added to that, which could be in the vicinity of $5,000 to $7,000. So it's a $25,000 decision to sell $1 million property. So it's not. I don't think any consumer would sit back and say that that's cheap. And I think that it's going to be a really interesting position on the consumer side, because consumers don't really care about the percentage; they care about the cost. I think we spend a lot of time focusing on the actual percentage. So I hope I'm wrong, but I suspect that in 2 years from now, that 1.76 that will be less. It would be my prediction for that reason. That I think that consumers will be expecting more. Property prices will continue to rise. I think that the cost per deal will not necessarily reduce, but I think the commission percentage will.
I can't get over. I had a real disconnect with my perception of what I thought the public thought of remuneration of real estate, and what they truly feel. I mean, I keep reading the comments on some of the TikTok posts I put up about real estate, and the average person says, why would I pay 30 grand for a guy with a clipboard outside a house for 4 weeks, just because they decided to be there instead of us who are at the shopping centre doing our shopping to hear back what they're going to say? We'll do the open home for the 4 weeks ourselves. So there's a view that I think out there in the perception is that a real estate agent, you can get the job done without a real estate person if all they've got to do is sit at an open home, take names and numbers, and then sell it to the best person.
Yeah, I can hear everyone in our industry thinking the same thing as I am. What they don't get is what the role is that we have to do and the time that it takes, and the fact that we do everything at risk. We provide our labour upfront for no charge until we actually get a result that satisfies our customer. So, I mean, that's something that I don't think that vendors take into consideration, and perhaps we don't sell well enough either. But that's also part of the reason why I guess our value per deal is probably high in the eyes of the public, because they just don't get that we're putting it all at risk. I did think it was interesting though, like in each state there was a focus of what the 3 challenges that they had. In New South Wales, they said staff wage costs increasing, that was 70%. Finding and recruiting new staff, that was 62%, and deteriorating economic conditions, 56%, were the top 3 things they looked at. The things that they wanted to focus on in New South Wales, and this is why I love this report, there's really good insights. 84% said that they wanted to increase their properties under management, which is no surprise, Phil, from what you were saying before. 57% said improving the efficiency, which is employing technology and improving staff training and development. And 52% said growing revenue from existing clients. So trying to get more from the customers they've got rather than searching for new ones. And that was just New South Wales. But a lot of what was sort of, I guess, after in New South Wales was also reflected across the other states. So I don't know if you guys sort of looked at that and had any sort of insights or commentary around those things, but I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw those numbers. Pete and I actually put a big mark against them. I thought they were pretty well considered and observed. And I think it comes to the sort of this intersection between running a profitable business in search of productivity. And to your point around how hard is it going to be for, it's funny because real estate sales is measured against the commission that the agent takes at an industry level. To your point, and to Tom's point, that the community, the consumer doesn't see that way. They just see as an absolute number, and they have a relationship with that absolute number, as in that's a lot of money. Actually, I could buy a new car for the amount of money I'm paying as a commission for the sale of this house. Whereas property management is pinned against the commission, and it's universal. And the consumer, i.e., the property investor, that's the currency how it's used. So you've got these two things working in different directions. Now, property management businesses inside of real estate, if they keep their commission stable, they're going to get upside in revenue because rents are going up. They'll continue to go up in time. That's not happening on the sales side. So, you have so many people. There's not a simple transaction inside of real estate because you have multiple different people. You have a buyer, a seller, and someone sitting in the middle. Same happens on property management. So how do you navigate the growth of your real estate business? I do note, Tom, that most agencies are seeking growth. So you've got agencies are looking for growth, but they're dealing with challenging economics of running a real estate business. And again, to me, it comes back to productivity. If you're not going to be able to generate too much more money from real estate sales, how do you do that more productively? And I find it quite concerning when I hear comments from Tom where people actually embrace technology, but they don't use it. The question I would have for you, Peter, is that how do you measure that? How do you actually understand the utility of how people are using Realtair, for example, inside of their organization? How do you get them to use it better? And then how do you actually help them measure that productivity increase? Because that's going to be at the heart of creating value inside of real estate businesses moving forward, which isn't price or commission orientated.
Yeah, well, I think it's I don't know that we've nailed that question. If we could get every person that signs up to our platform to use every single part of our platform, whether you're a Realtair or a CRM or anything, you'd be absolutely so it's such a joyous thing if everyone used every part every time. What we measure though is we've got a health score for each of our customers, right down to an agency level. So we're agent level, I should say. So we would say we've got a customer success team that just purely work with those customers based on health score, just to get them engaged with the platform. The second part of it is that I guess you look at an agent and getting active in any part of it. It's the amount of times that they come back to the platform. So what are our daily regular users? And we don't have 100% of users using the platform every single day, but it's around about, I think it's near enough to 70% or thereabouts. So it's a pretty big number, and that's another number that we measure, and that actually increases. That's been increasing every single month. I do think that I think one of the most critical things that anybody can do in a real estate business is that you've got to have a plan. And that's what I was talking about earlier. It's just, if you've got a plan, then you can actually, and you make that clear and you make that clear to your team, then that's something that you can measure. It's something that once you measure it, you can create an expectation and create accountability. And I think a lot of agents would like to earn more, and they probably also wouldn't be too upset with their leader providing them, or actually making them accountable, really. Giving them the tools, but actually holding them to account to actually use them. And that's one of our big drives this year, is saying, what is your plan? What's your expectation? How we've got the systems to monitor it all. let's make sure that you hold them to account. And I've done a couple of sessions just of late with some of our key customers where we've been talking specifically about that accountability to the agent using the software. And the thing about it is they all want to earn more money. They don't want to put their business at risk. They do want continuity. And the one thing that creates a lack of continuity is a lack of consistency. And, if they're consistent with their prospecting, everything else falls into place. But one thing, just in terms of commentary, Manos Vindiakis has made a comment, and I love it. Volume is vanity, profit is sanity. And I think the thing about it too is that, like you've got businesses that are quite happy to promote their multi-million-dollar sales profile and these great number of listings, but are they actually making money? And over the years, I'm sure we've all seen it, where you see big blasts of these businesses that have got big profiles and all the rest of it, and then all of a sudden, within a couple of years, they don't exist anymore. And it's because they're doing it off sort of unnatural steam and trying to cut corners. Our business is pretty simple. We, as agents, we build relationships with people that live in a marketplace. If we miss a listing because we never got called in, that's not the owner's fault. It's not the person that listed it. It wasn't the principal's fault. It was the agent's fault that they never introduced themselves to that owner. And to me, that's a really simple thing that, you've got to make yourself accountable to build your own business. And I think if we kind of have that lens on, that will improve productivity. An agent taking greater responsibility themselves, not expecting that a principal is going to do more things for them other than provide leadership and provide them, if need be, with tools, and maybe to measure and hold them to account. It's not a complicated business, this game. And you say it all the time, Tom, it's a people business. When it's not a property business, it's a people business.
So Pete, if you and I were operating today on the commission split that we were on back in 1990, that was roughly the year that this was happening. If we were to write $1 million on 30%, that's 300 is your share. In today, typically if you write $1 million, it's 600, right?
Yeah.
It's 600,000. And in addition to that, you could probably, with the tech stack that's available now, you could probably get by with getting rid of one less assistant in your team. So that would be another $70,000, $80,000 that you're saving. You'd have set up a company, so taxation will work out a lot better. Look, I've got to tell you, if you're a serious guy or girl, real estate is not a bad business to be in when you look around other jobs that exist on the planet. It's the highest paid hard work. It's the lowest paid easy work. I get all of that. I understand all of that. And I also get the fact that it takes a special person to be able to go to work. As Peter said earlier on, all the risk is up front. I will take this buyer out. I will work all week, and there is no guarantee I'm going to get paid anything. It takes a special person. The average person would rather go working at Politics Menswear and leave with 50 grand a year guaranteed than the unpredictability of maybe $300,000. But Pete, I know that on a Tech Tuesday, we always try and encourage people who may be sort of sitting there, oh, should I do it? Should I explore it? Susan, if you can put in the chat box and also on social media, get on a Realtair, realtair.com. Is it .com or .au, Pete, over the Christmas?
Just
.com. Realtair.com. You're trying to have a crack in, thank you, Susan, trying to have a crack in the States. Realtair's really, I know you're back in New York in 2 weeks' time, aren't you?
No, I leave tomorrow. So,
Tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's completely different environment over there now. As you know, with the lawsuit where they're now.
You know what's going on there, Phil? There's a change in the law. Quickly, for all our listeners, tell us what's going on there in the change of law in the US, because I see Tom Ferry getting on social media. Relax, everyone. We'll work through this. It's going to be fine. Trying to pacify everyone. They're all freaking out there.
I know. all that they're really doing, Tom, is going from, the buyer's agent's never been paid a fee directly by the buyer. The listing agent signed up, a commission of say 6%, almost like it was before deregulation. I remember in New South Wales, not that it was ever 6, but it was closer to 3.
3.1% for the first 100, 2% thereafter, off the top of my head.
That's exactly right. But so they're charging 6%, and the seller, so the buyer's agent, the selling agent sort of lets the buyer's agent know they got this listing. They effectively then the buyer's agent introduces their buyers. Those buyers with the buyer's agent, there's no fee that is paid. It's just that the listing commission is split between the agent, the listing agent, and the buyer's agent, which effectively means that the seller is paying that full 6%, which means that they're paying the buyer's agency portion of the com. Now that's existed for decades. And there's other abnormalities with that, with multiple listing services and all that kind of stuff, which is different to where we operate in a portal space here. But ultimately, the Department of Justice took the NAR and all the major companies to court, and they were successful in saying that is a conflict of interest. There will be a course of appeal. That was 2 years just to get to that point. So there'll be years of lawyers debating it, just like it does in the TV shows. But there is a real concern in the industry that they're going to have to, as a listing agent, deal with buyers directly. I mean, that's what we do. Like, we do that every day. And if you're a buyer's agent, you actually have to now justify a fee, because you can only be paid by the buyer, not by the seller. So it's not law yet, but that's what they expect is going to happen. So they will just become like us. And I think the way that we operate, there's a lot for the US to learn from us. There's a lot that we can learn from them as well. But in terms of the transactional process, that's the big change that's happening there. So you might see, half of the buyer's agents disappear. The other half will probably become listing agents. So
if you're a vendor on Facebook, you're probably not on the webinar, but you're on Facebook because I've got a public page. If you're a vendor in Australia or New Zealand, for that matter, watching it, you'd feel good to know that you're paying less than half the fee of what a vendor does to sell their home in the USA.
Yeah. Well, imagine if you're a vendor in the USA and you've just this becomes law. You go from paying 6% to 3%, like instantly. And that I think is the great fear, because you've got some of these businesses that actually have got a buyer's agency side and they've got a seller's agency side, and that's really where the conflict of interest is quite evident. They're getting paid on both sides of the transaction. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've got a few meetings over there, and I love listening to all the fears that they have, sitting there saying, well, we deal with this every single day. And they find it quite bizarre, but they've got a lot they can learn from us in the way that we transact.
Maybe while he's there, Phil, he can take Manage to the USA as well. I didn't realise that you'd increase your stake in. Do you know what Managed is, Pete?
Yeah, it's great software. Fantastic software for property managers. And that's the thing too. Like, it's it's at the cutting edge of the way that property management is done. And you look at all these numbers in the Macquarie report. There's no surprise that people are worried about property managers, because you need to have software that can help a property manager manage more properties in order to pay them more. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, listen, I'm just going to pay you more and you can manage the same amount. You need systems and processes and technology that can actually create efficiency in the way that property manager operates. And software like Manage can do that comfortably.
Pete, thanks for the insights there in America. You've given me a lot more colour to what I knew was going on there. I imagine that's quite a positive outcome for an organisation like yours, because it sounds like agents are going to have to start working a lot differently to how they have worked in the past, where they're just sitting at the intercept. Real estate brokers is what they call them, calling up your mates who sits on the buyer's agency side to get a transaction done. They're going to actually have to get out there and hunt and prospect and be a lot more customer facing, much like an Australian agent. So they'll be chasing productivity as well.
Yeah, they will. And I think also too, sorry, I'm just plugging in because I'm worried that I'm going to lose power here. Yeah, I think that's true, Phil. But I think it's such a, for them, they don't need to change too much. It's not a major shift, but I tell you that I'll probably look more at Tom when I think about opportunities, you know, beyond the tech side of it. Like they need to be taught how to engage as an agent who works for both sides. And I don't know that we've perfected it here in Australia either. We certainly have our problems. You just have to ask Fair Trading, and they'll tell you that they get plenty of complaints from buyers right around the country. But it will be quite an area of opportunity, I think, if it actually does happen, both on the tech front and on the training side, because they're going to need a lot of help.
All right, beautiful. Tech Tuesday, first one for 2024. Pete's going to go off and pack his 20-kilo bag, or probably flying business class. You'll probably give him 40 kilos. And he's off.
Upgrade, Tom, is what I'm praying for. So if everyone can do that for me, that'd be tops.
All right, visualization. Having said that, hasn't worked for me in Byron Bay. Car spot. I keep driving around and round and round in circles. Hasn't worked for me. Phil Tarrant, we're going to get back together. What's making headlines? Start educating everyone on what's happening every week. I want to thank you so much. This is the report we've been talking about, by the way, is Macquarie Bank Report. I'm going to make sure that we send a link out there that people can get access to that report. And yeah, all the best, gentlemen. And thank you again to Realtair for Tech Tuesday.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Macquarie, for putting that report together.